Meanwhile, in another corner of the Triverse, just through the portal, lies the Mirrorverse, a realm where every shadow tells a story. This one is about the Salvage Inc. crew. The morning light on the alien planet was soft, filtering through the atmosphere and casting long shadows from the towering structures dotting the landscape. The crew of the Requiem had begun their day like many before, preparing their equipment, checking their data, and setting out to uncover the mysteries that this world held. As they approached another of the enigmatic structures, similar in design to the beacon they had first encountered, Rin, the newly appointed commander of the Requiem, paused and scanned the horizon. The quiet was profound, broken only by the distant calls of alien wildlife and the occasional rustle of the breeze through strange, fern-like plants. "Looks like just another relic," Nicordus muttered, tapping his scanner in mild frustration as it failed to pick up any new readings. "Don't jinx it," Falir replied, his tone light, eyes focused on the structure's surface. "Every piece tells a part of the story, right?" As they neared the structure, a sudden hum vibrated through the air, a sound so pure and resonating that it seemed to come from the very planet itself. The crew stopped in their tracks, looking around in alarm. Rin raised her hand, signaling a halt. "Steady," she said quietly, her eyes narrowing as she observed the structure. It began to glow faintly, lines of light tracing patterns across its surface. "It's activating," Monger announced, its robotic voice cutting through the tension. The Mechron, now integrated into the crew, moved closer to the structure, its sensors whirring and lights blinking in response to the structure's awakening. "I'm getting something here," Falir whispered, stepping forward with a handheld scanner. He extended the device toward the structure, but before he could initiate a scan, the structure itself spoke. "I am Curie, welcome creators." A voice emanated from the structure, sounding mechanical. "I am the AI of this terraforming station, originally from the Earth vessel, Solemn Vanguard. I am very happy to finally be able to meet humans. Sadly, all the questions I wanted to ask were stored in my databanks." The crew exchanged glances, a mix of surprise and intrigue on their faces. "An AI?" Rin questioned, stepping forward. "And from an Earth ship here? What happened to your vessel?" Curie's lights pulsed softly, the voice resuming with a hint of melancholy. "The Solemn Vanguard sustained critical damage in conflict. My core was ejected together with the ship's atmospheric processor to continue the mission of terraforming in the event of catastrophic loss." "Ah, the classic last-ditch survival protocol," Nicordus said, nodding with a mix of respect and sadness for the AI's lost shipmates. Falir, ever the quick-witted one, was quick to probe further. "And your mission here? Has it been successful?" Then continues, "It looks like it has been doing well?" "Partially," Curie responded. "The process is ongoing, but without direct intervention it remains incomplete." Rin stepped closer, her leadership instincts kicking in. "Perhaps we can help finish what you started," she offered, her tone both compassionate and decisive. "Tell us what needs to be done." As Curie began to outline the steps necessary to reactivate and link the dormant terraforming systems, the crew listened intently, each member already formulating plans in their minds. "Looks like we've got our work cut out for us," Nicordus said, breaking the momentary silence that had fallen as they absorbed Curie's instructions. "From salvaging a Mechron ship for riches to terraforming a backup planet." Falir chuckled softly, checking his tools. "Let's just hope we're up to the task. You are, after all, right? We're not just salvagers anymore, we're terraformers." With a new purpose and a clear goal, the crew of the Requiem prepared to dive deeper into the secrets of the planet, guided by an AI from a lost Earth vessel. Their journey was no longer just about exploration. It was about resurrection. The dense forest that surrounded them was alive with the sounds of unknown creatures and the rustle of leaves that moved in a rhythm with the gentle breeze. As the crew made their way back to the Requiem, Rin led the discussion on their next steps, with the newly discovered AI, Curie, still communicating through their portable devices. "Curie, tell us more about the Solemn Vanguard. What was its mission?" Rin asked as they trudged through the underbrush, making sure to keep an eye on the path that Monger was cutting through the dense foliage. Curie's voice, emanating from a small speaker on Rin's wrist communicator, was tinged with static, but the tone remained clear and informative. The solemn vanguard had been designed to battle against the mechanoid incoming fleet. Monger interjected himself. Mechron's bad for universe, but mechanoid's way worse. Curie continued. The vanguard would lead at the front of the fleet to break through Earth's blockade, if it ever came to that, and then continue our mission to ensure humanity had a future. I am unable to access the ship's databanks, so I am unsure what actually transpired. My personal databanks have been damaged and eroded. Falier looked up from his gadget, interest piqued. How many ships were in this fleet? There were originally 12 dreadnoughts planned. I was the science module AI on board. The entire building process was handled by AI, no human intervention required. Nicordus whistled lowly. Did any others succeed? Unknown, replied Curie. But seeing I made it onto this planet, we made it through the blockade, I assume. Rin then asked, Curie, I have to ask, who built you? We have no data on 12 dreadnoughts being built in our solar system. We only know of a single one, and the Mechron fleet you speak of is still hundreds of years away from Earth. Curie quickly interjected. I have no data on these Mechron you speak of. I only know of the mechanoids. My data is limited as she repeats the sentence about the damaged memory modules. Falier responded, I am confused. With Nicordus replying, I think that makes 3 of us. Rin, well, it's not like the Requiem was built in our time, it's clearly from the future, so what we are having here might be a time paradox. They might also be from the future, but that ship departs 200 or so years from now. Curie replied, well, I did scan your ship, it is N-Tech made, just like the Vanguard, except that its magnitude's more advanced than the Solemn Vanguard. It does seem to lack an AI. Nicordus answers, yeah, we kind of found it that way. Holding back a, we stole it joke. Never know how an AI would react. This new information seemed to weigh heavily on the crew, each member processing the scale of their discovery and the broader implications. As they approached the Requiem, Rin signaled to stop for a moment. We need to consider our next moves carefully, she said, scanning the faces of her team. Curie, you mentioned the terraforming process was incomplete. What's needed to finish it? Curie's voice crackled slightly as she explained. The main control hub for the terraforming process has been offline for quite some time. If reactivated, I can manage the system to deploy my final protocols. Monger, always ready to lend a hand, interjected enthusiastically, I can assist in connecting with the hub once we find it. Curie, with a hint of amusement in her voice, teased, accepting help from a mechanoid, huh? Ares would never let me hear the end of it if he were here. Visibly irritated, Monger corrected her sharply. Not mechanoid, Mechron. Rin stepped in, trying to diffuse the tension with a calm, soothing tone. All right, let's settle down, both of you. Now that that's decided, let's go find that hub and get it operational. Pausing for a moment, she added curiously, by the way, how long have you been on this planet? Unknown, replied Curie. Databanks have eroded. The crew's trek back to the Requiem was marked by a renewed sense of purpose. They reached the ship and quickly gathered around the main console in the cockpit. Rin brought up the planet's topographical maps, scanning for potential locations of the control hub. As Falier pointed to a region marked by unusual geological formations, Nicordus leaned over his shoulder, squinting at the screen. That looks about right for a control hub, secluded in plant life, very hard to reach. This is going to be a pain in the ass to get to. Falier nodded, adjusting the display to highlight the area. It's going to be a hike, rough terrain, possibly unstable. We'll need to gear up properly. Nicordus replied, pain in the ass. Rin approved the plan and set the crew to prepare. Monger prepared a selection of tools and interfacing devices, while Falier checked and double-checked the gear. Nicordus, meanwhile, loaded up on supplies, ensuring they had enough provisions and medical supplies because he took with him everything. Let's not turn this into a camping trip, Rin joked as she hoisted a particularly heavy bag over her shoulder and brought it back into the cargo hold. I'm not hauling this back just for fun. Falier smirked, handing over a compact, high-tech tent. You'll thank me when you're not sleeping under a rock for shelter. With preparations complete, the crew of the Requiem set out towards the location that might hold the key to Curie's last protocols. The journey was tough, the path often obscured by thick undergrowth and the occasional unidentifiable noise from the surrounding wilderness keeping them on alert. As they hiked, Curie continued to provide insights into the terraforming technology they were about to encounter, her voice a steady presence in their ears. Rin, leading the way with Monger by her side, felt the weight of the mission on her shoulders. After several days of trekking, the team reached the main control hub for the terraforming process. Upon inspection, Nicordus immediately pinpointed the problem, remarking, "Well, I found the issue." Everyone's face lit up with a smile. He then continued with, "A huge hole." The hub's damage was severe, with significant portions burned through and parts missing, suggesting a harsh landing or attack during its ejection from the Dreadnought. This discovery made it clear that repairing the hub with their current resources was not feasible, so Curie came up with a new plan. "Easy, just getting a new module sent down from the Solemn Vanguard," said Nicordus as he repeated what the AI just had said. Nicordus followed up with, "A pain in the ass." The crisp morning air swirled around the Requiem as it sat quietly on the alien terrain, its hull gleaming under the first light of the planet's twin suns. Inside, the atmosphere was abuzz with activity. Rin stood by the navigation console, meticulously checking the coordinates they had for the drifting Solemn Vanguard. Her expression was focused, her mind racing through the checklist of preparations needed. "Navigation systems are green. We're ready to chart a course as soon as we're all aboard," she announced, her voice echoing slightly through the intercom. In the cargo bay, Falir and Nicordus were busy securing the last pieces of their gear. Boxes of supplies were neatly stacked and tethered to the walls, and the air was filled with the scent of synthetic oil and metal, a testament to their rigorous preparations. "Make sure those tether lines are tight," Nicordus instructed, double-checking the knots himself. "We don't want anything floating around in space." Falir, handling a particularly stubborn piece of machinery, grunted in response. "What I'd give for a gravity well right about now," he muttered, finally securing the gear with a satisfied nod. "There, that's not going anywhere." The banter between the crew continued as they worked, each member comfortable in their role, yet aware of the risks involved. Monger, assisting with the technical setup, interfaced directly with the ship's central system, updating systems with the latest navigation data provided by Curie. "All systems are now optimized for deep space travel," it announced, its voice calm and measured. "Good work, Monger," Rin replied, glancing over the readouts. "Let's keep everything running this smoothly." As the last checks were completed, Rin gathered the crew in the briefing room. The walls were lined with digital displays showing star charts and a live feed of their destination. "All right, team, this is it," Rin began, her gaze meeting each of her crew members in turn. "We've got a solid plan, but I want everyone on their toes. We don't know what condition the Vanguard is in, or what we're going to find aboard." Falir nodded, his usual humor subdued by the gravity of the mission. "Yeah, who knows how unstable that old Dreadnought is?" Nicordus added, "What could go wrong? We get in, we extract what we need, and we get out." "Exactly," Rin confirmed. "We have a window of opportunity while the Vanguard passes by the planet. It's now or never seeing the size of that module. There is no way we can load this into the Requiem with just 4 of us. We have to eject it on a trajectory to land within reach of Curie. We can't fuck this one up." The crew's determination was palpable as they made their way to their stations. Each movement practiced and precise, is what I would want to say. But no, not this party. The Requiem's engines hummed to life, sending vibrations through the ship. As the ship disengaged from the planet's surface, the landscape below shrank away, becoming just another part of the vast tapestry of space that stretched out infinitely before them. Falir, stationed at his console, monitored their trajectory, making minor adjustments as they cleared the planet's atmosphere. "Trajectory is stable. We're on course for the rendezvous with the Vanguard." Rin, sitting in the commander's chair, allowed herself a moment of pride. This crew, her crew, was about to embark on a journey that could well be a pivotal moment in human history. The vastness of space enveloped the Requiem as it cruised towards the coordinates of the Solemn Vanguard. Stars twinkled like distant lanterns, guiding the way through the cosmic sea. Inside the ship, the dim blue lighting cast long shadows along the corridors, matching the solemn mood that had settled over the crew as they neared their destination. Rin, her eyes fixed on the deep black of space displayed on the forward screens. Every now and then, a distant star would flare as if acknowledging their passage. "Approaching the target coordinates," Monger announced, its voice steady and devoid of the tension that tightened Rin's shoulders. Sensors are detecting a large mass. It appears to be the Vanguard. Nicordus, who had been checking and rechecking his gear, looked up. Let's hope it's not monster-infested. If it's not the planet being eat the humans, it could still be that ship, he said. Falir, focused intently at his sensor array, carefully adjusted the dials, his brow furrowed in concentration. I'm picking up some unusual readings here, he announced, a note of concern in his voice. He continued, scrutinizing the data flashing across the screens. The hull's torn wide open, yet, surprisingly, most of the ship still has a breathable atmosphere. However, there are no signs of any power signatures. Pausing, he glanced around at his crewmates, his curiosity piqued. It's somewhat intact. I wonder if it's still operational. It looks kind of dead, Nicordus muttered, strapping a flashlight to his suit. Rin shot him a look that softened as she turned back to the viewport. Prepare for boarding. We don't know what we'll find, but remember, our primary goal is to find the backup module to land on the planet this time, without huge holes in it, and hopefully find some answers. What a ship that shouldn't exist is doing here. Like, how many damn paradoxes are we going to find? First the Requiem, then the planet, now this. As the Requiem drew closer, the imposing form of the solemn Vanguard came into view. The ship was a behemoth. Its hull, scarred and pitted from untold battles or debris, reflected the light from distant stars, the silent sentinel of the void. Monger interfaced with the Requiem's docking system, guiding the ship gently towards the Vanguard. Docking sequence initiated, magnetic locks engaging now. The soft thud of the locks securing themselves to the Vanguard's airlock sent a shiver through the crew. This was it. They were about to step onto a ship that hadn't felt the presence of humans in decades, maybe longer, if only they knew how long this ship has been traveling the stars. Let's move out, Rin ordered, leading her team to the airlock. They donned their EVA suits in silence, each member mentally preparing for what might await them aboard the ghost ship. The airlock door slid open with a hiss, revealing the dark, gaping entrance to the Vanguard. Rin, not being her usual self, stepped in first, her suit's lights piercing the darkness. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of ionization and old metal. This place is a tomb, Nicordus whispered, his voice echoing slightly over the comms. Stay focused, Rin replied. Monger, best you stay on the Requiem. Keep an eye on our lifelines and comms. Falir, you're with me. Nicordus, see if you can find the modules that Curie had been talking about. Nicordus mutters, all by myself? Alone? Falir replies, but you said it yourself, it looks kind of dead. Nicordus wanted to reply, but the other two already rounded a corner, so he could only mutter a single word. Fuck. The ship was a labyrinth of corridors and sealed doors. Every so often they would pass a viewing port, offering glimpses of the ship's interior. Beautiful, yet indifferent to the small band of explorers uncovering the secrets of the past and future. As they made their way to the main control room, Rin's thoughts drifted to the crew that once manned the Vanguard. What hopes and fears had they harbored? They reached the control room, and the door slid open with a reluctant groan, something it hadn't done in centuries. This gave them both goosebumps. Rin, taken aback a bit, looks at Falir, then asked him, I thought there wasn't any power. Falir just gave a slight shoulder shrug back, stating, I don't know. Inside, consoles and screens were coated in dust, untouched for ages. Rin approached the main terminal, her hand hesitating before touching the cold, lifeless interface. Let's see if we can wake up the consoles, she said, her voice a mix of command and encouragement. Falir set up a portable power unit and connected it to the console. The screens flickered to life, casting an eerie glow in the dim room. Text scrolled across the display, logs and data from the Vanguard's last few days in operation. Looks like we've got access to the ship's terminals, logs, and maybe more, Falir said, scanning through the entries. There's a lot of data here that could help us understand what happened. That would be great, because we seem to be in way over our heads with all of this, Rin added, her focus now on the screen, deciphering the logs. The secrets of the Vanguard were slowly unfolding, each file and entry a piece of the puzzle they were here to solve. As they delved deeper into the data, The sense of being part of something much larger than themselves grew. Here, among the stars and the silence of a long-lost ship, they were not just scavengers or survivors. They were the bearers of legacy, picking up the torch to light humanity's way forward. The air was thick with the weight of discoveries yet to be unearthed. The consoles, now humming softly with renewed life, cast an otherworldly glow over Rin and Falir as they pored over the data streams flowing across the screens. "Look at this," Falir said, his voice a mix of excitement and disbelief as he tapped at a graph laden with complex algorithms. "These are the AI protocols. I've seen our current AIs, but they are like nothing compared to these. The technology here could accelerate our efforts back on the planet by decades." Rin leaned closer, her eyes tracing the lines of code that represented hope. "Can we integrate this into the Requiem systems?" she asked, thinking aloud. "We really could use an AI, until we get Biscuit back." She was of course kidding. "It's possible," Falir nodded, already mentally sifting through the modifications they would need to make. "We'll need to download everything we can and have Monger help with the translation and implementation of this tech. I am just a thug, not an engineer." Which gave Rin an unpleasant flashback to paying with her kidneys. As they worked, Nicordus patrolled the corridors looking for the small needle in a large stack of slightly bigger needles, yet it felt like he was somehow guided through the corridors by something subtle and unseen, his rifle at the ready, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. His footsteps echoed in the empty ship, a reminder of its abandonment. "It's quiet out here," Nicordus reported into the comm, his voice tinged with wariness. "Too quiet." His eyes fixed on a single automaton guardian that stood ominously among the rows lining the corridor. It seemed as if it could spring to life at any moment and tear him apart, adding an edge of tension to the silence. "Just keep sharp," Rin replied, her focus shifting briefly to ensure their safety. "We don't know everything that's aboard, or what might have taken residence in the years it's been adrift." Nicordus's voice crackled through the comm, edged with panic. "Wait, you think something might be on board?" Just as he spoke, he drifted out of comms range, and his link abruptly disconnected, leaving his question hanging in the unnerving silence. Isolated and tense, Nicordus paused, a cold shiver running down his spine. He could have sworn that just a moment ago, the head of the nearby automaton was positioned differently. Now, its gaze seemed ominously shifted, as if tracking his movements silently. The sudden solitude and the eerie change intensified his fear, making him painfully aware of his vulnerability in the ghostly ship. Back inside the control room, Falir successfully interfaced a portable drive with the Vanguard's mainframe. Data began to transfer, a stream of light flickering on the drive's indicator. "This is going to take a while," he said, watching the progress bar slowly inch forward. "We're talking about a Dreadnought's worth of data, and this is just what is left in these terminals. To get all the data, we would need to power on the mainframe. Let's just wait on the terminal data," Rin decided, her gaze settling on the viewport that offered a view of the stars beyond. "We can't leave without this, but reactivating the ship, we aren't equipped for that. The damage to its core systems is way beyond what we can do," she says while pulling up a damage assessment. "It took a serious beating. We can always come back later." The wait was tense, each minute stretching out as the data transfer crawled along. Rin and Falir used the time to explore the immediate areas around the control room, careful not to stray too far. Every new room held remnants of the past, a scattered log, a floating tool, remnants of a life once lived at the edge of human exploration, not knowing the Dreadnought had done none of that. All it ever knew was war. In one room, they found a wall filled with images of the crew that should have once manned the Vanguard. Smiling faces stared back at them, frozen in time. Rin paused before the pictures, touched by the glimpse into the lives of the Vanguard crew. "It makes you think," she murmured, her voice soft, "about the bravery it took to embark on this task." Falir nodded, his expression somber. "Makes our problems seem small in comparison." Their exploration led them back to the control room just as the data transfer completed. The drive blinked a final time, and Falir removed it carefully. "We've got it," he announced, a relieved smile breaking across his face. "All right, Nicordus, come in. Did you manage to find the module?" Nicordus's voice came through the comms, crackling slightly but filled with a palpable sense of relief. Yeah, found it. It's undamaged. I've entered the coordinates, and it accepted them without any issues. It will start auto-deploying in about 5 minutes. I'm already on my way back. He paused for a moment, his voice quickening with anticipation. I'll see you on the Requiem soon. As he resumed his trek back to safety, a more personal note crept into his voice, tinged with eager longing. I can't wait to get out of here. Just in time, Rin replied, glancing at her watch as it's let's get the fuck out of here time. With the drive secured and the deployment underway, they made their way back to the Requiem, retracing their steps through the silent halls of the Vanguard. As they regrouped with Nicordus, they made their way to the airlock. Then, as Rin closed the doors behind her, she took one last look back at the derelict ship, feeling a kinship with the lost crew who had, in their own way, passed on the torch to them. While they made preparations to undock back on the bridge, Ares, the ship's commanding AI, flickered briefly to life. So, Curie, he mused, you made some new friends. We shall leave you to your task, while we stay up here silently looking over you. Then all the other AIs flickered to life, silently agreeing with their commander, before falling dormant again, for who knows how long. Back aboard their ship, the journey home was quiet, each member of the team lost in their thoughts, pondering the implications of their findings. They had retrieved a treasure trove of data, information albeit encrypted, that promised a leap forward for humanity's future. As the Requiem set its course back to the planet, Rin felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. They were carrying back not just data, but a legacy. The challenge now was to honor that legacy, to build on it, and to dream of what might come next. The stars outside seemed to twinkle in agreement, a silent cheer for the ship and its brave crew heading home to New Earth. But that Triverse story will have to be told another day. If you've stuck with me up to this point, a heartfelt thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to remind you that my entire channel is dedicated to the Triverse and its enthralling Mechanoid saga, while many of the stories stand alone, allowing you to dive in at any point. Crafting these narratives takes about 4 or 5 days each, so your patience is greatly appreciated. If you find yourself enjoying what you see, consider exploring more of my videos. Each one, in its own unique way, weaves together more of the overarching story I'm telling.